So,
Okay, sorry about that. One more time. I think if you could type in the chat box if you're having troubles hearing. We think the audio is okay. So if you have problems hearing, please type in the chat. Otherwise, I'd like to turn this over to Dave Tarboton to speak about HydroShare and CyberGIS. Thanks. Go ahead, Dave.
Okay, well, thank you, Rick. And hello again, everyone. I appreciate this opportunity to give you another webinar on HydroShare. Now, the only problem with the audio is me actually saying something sensible, so we'll see if I can do that. HydroShare is the work of a large team spread across multiple institutions listed on this slide, and I'm immensely grateful for their work. It's supported by the National Science Foundation Software Infrastructure for Sustained Innovation program to support the cyber infrastructure needs of the quasi community. The webinar today is entitled How to Delineate Watersheds and Perform Hydrologic Terrain Analysis with HydroShare and CyberGIS. And that represents not only the work funded as part of the HydroShare project, but also the work of the CyberGIS Center at NCSA, or the National Center for Supercomputing Applications at the University of Illinois. And some of it was funded as a supplement to the CyberGIS project to establish interoperability between HydroShare and CyberGIS. So what I'll be showing represents cross-project collaboration and leveraging of functionality developed in each project for the benefit of the other. Xiaowen Wang is the lead of the CyberGIS project, and I want to acknowledge the contribution of his team. And the functionality I'm showing today is using capabilities of both of those projects to enhance what users can do with these systems working together. So this is the third webinar in the series. In the first webinar, I showed the basic capabilities of HydroShare, how to upload, share, and publish your data with HydroShare, how to manage access, fill out metadata, and support basic data management. In the second webinar, Jeff Horsburgh showed some of the social collaborative functionality, highlighting the value that can be added by using and working on data collaboratively and treating hydrologic data and models as social objects. He also introduced an idea that I actually find intriguing, and that's one of personal cyber infrastructure as a set of tools you know and use to get your work done. It's rare that one tool does all that you need to do, and we get our work done drawing on multiple tools, and that's why standards and interoperability are important. And the seminar today is going to show how interoperability has been established between HydroShare and CyberGIS, and how you can make those as part of your personal cyber infrastructure to use with other tools that you use to get your work done to do certain hydrologic terrain analysis jobs. I'm not going to repeat the basics that were covered in these first two seminars today, so if you want to learn about them, they should be recorded and up on the Quasi website. Next week, there'll be a webinar by Venkatesh Mawade, who's been working on interoperability between HydroShare and SWOTshare for collaboration around SWOT models. Then we'll actually have the Quasi colloquium, where we've got a couple of workshops, one that shows how to use the Water Data Center and HydroShare functionality, and then another one on developing web apps. And then in August, Dan Ames will give a webinar on web-based hydrologic analysis and modeling. So this slide shows the components of HydroShare, and I showed a slide similar to this in my first webinar. At the bottom is basically two disk stores, or two data stores, one at HydroShare and one at CyberGIS, showing that they are federated through the IRODS network file system. And basically, you can think of this as distributing data storage. If you think of this as a sort of networking system, we've got, you might have a C drive and a D drive on your personal computer. Here we've got two different data stores in different places, but IRODS makes them appear in an integrated way. The work that I showed last time in terms of publishing and sharing data was all related to the HydroShare website, which supports sharing content, supports collaboration, and supports resource exploration. I introduced the idea of apps last time, but today we're really going to be focusing on apps, and they are applications that can act on resources to perhaps produce new resources, and they provide the functionality that makes HydroShare useful to you beyond sharing and publishing data. One of the nice things about apps, as we've used them here, is they can be set up by anyone making the system extensible. And today I'll show using the CyberGIS gateway, which is software at NCSA, serving here as an app to HydroShare. I'll also show the HydroShare GIS Tethys app, which was developed at BYU and is deployed as part of HydroShare. And then I'll mention Jupyter Notebook app. I won't demonstrate that. So this is the outline. I'll first motivate the capabilities to be shown. Then I'll describe hydrologic terrain analysis and CyberGIS. Then I'll show how to use the TAUDEM app that is being built into the CyberGIS gateway to delineate watersheds and how to do hydrologic terrain analysis. What I can demonstrate in 1 hour is a little bit limited, so to show more of the potential, I'll describe the computation of a national height above the nearest drainage layer on CyberGIS as something that you can do over the longer term, and shows working with big data. And then I'll end with a list of some of the ongoing developments. So the overarching motivation for this work is that advancing understanding in hydrology requires integration of information from multiple sources. It's data and computationally intensive and requires collaboration. Cloud-based systems that support working with big data and models on interconnected servers are revolutionizing the way we work. Think of how we collaborate on things like Google Documents, using Dropbox, and interact using social media. Here we really want to add value to this for hydrology in adding essentially hydrologic functionality to this space. So that's showing the idea of data analysis and models in a cloud or server-based system that's remote from where you're working, and with people collaborating using that. Another motivation is data size. I showed this slide last time, and it shows how digital elevation model data for a typical watershed has increased by a factor of about 10,000 over the span of my career, and we need large computer systems to be able to handle this. So supercomputers are part of the answer, and shown on the right there is a photograph of a supercomputer, but they're hard to use. And in this slide, I'm positing that there's a digital divide that limits fully exploiting the potential of high-performance computing. The sort of typical person who might work in hydrology would be interested in a sort of flow chart, interested in field measurements, work on a laptop, and not want to deal with the complexities of the job submission languages required for supercomputers. So we need gateway data and software services, and some of what I'll show is going to actually be demonstrating that. So the subject we're going to focus on is hydrologic terrain analysis, which is an area where I've focused much of my career, and where we strive to use digital elevation models to improve hydrologic modeling and prediction. So a digital elevation model is a computer file that represents the topography. You can think of it as just elevation values on a grid, and you could then draw contours with it if you want a visual representation. It's a simple data structure, but it can be used to derive a much richer set of hydrologic information. Topography is important to hydrology because watersheds are fundamentally the basic hydrologic landscape elements that we deal with. Topography dictates the flow of water across the landscape, and then flowing water sculpts the landscape. So you've got a synergy there that's the heart of hydrologic modeling relating to runoff generation. We have things like the topographic wetness index that uses topography to show areas that might be wet and where runoff might be generated. And representing hydrologic processes at high resolution, it's important to is important to help solve the problems of runoff generation, flooding, and water resources. So this shows some of the steps involved in computing hydrologic information from digital elevation models. You start with the raw data. We do things like fill the pits to hydrologically condition the digital elevation model so that each grid cell drains. Then we calculate flow direction based on the difference in elevation between adjacent grid cells. And here we've got sort of an evaluation of whether it's steepest going from the cell in the middle to the bottom one or the diagonal one. We get a flow direction grid. Once you've got a flow direction grid, you can do things like count how many grid cells drain into each other grid cell. You've got contributing areas. And then you can derive a whole bunch of other information, things like the sub-watersheds draining to each stream network, or define the stream networks, or if stuff, perhaps contaminant, originates in this area that's black, where would it go and how it might attenuate. So there's quite a bit of software available for doing that. Many of the methods are well established as part of geographic information systems. One set of software tools is TOWDEM, terrain analysis using digital elevation models, which my group has developed. And this slide just lists some of the functionality that it includes. It supports delineating streams and watersheds. One of its unique features is that it allows flow from each grid cell to go to multiple of the downslope neighbors, proportioning them based on the angle, and that gives you a better representation of flow perpendicular to the contours. But while this functionality is well established, we need to work with large data sets, and this slide shows some of the work done where TOWDEM was reprogrammed to work in parallel to help take advantage of supercomputers. So on the right is shown a depiction of a digital elevation model broken into 3 horizontal stripes, and the general idea is to assign each stripe to a separate processor and set the processors working on that in parallel. And there's a little bit of overlap between the stripes so that there can be communication between them to give a global result. And by adopting that sort of strategy, we can get improved runtime efficiency and the capability to run larger problems. However, using TOWDEM today requires, it's actually sometimes quite hard, although we've worked really hard on making it easy. It requires expertise in hydrologic digital elevation model analysis. You sort of need to know what you're doing. It requires the software. If you're working on a PC, there's a plugin available for ArcGIS, so you may need ArcGIS licenses to do the associated visualization. It requires the ability to install software, and sometimes organizations are reluctant to allow that for software downloaded from a single professor's website that may not have the security authentication that they like. If you're going to work with it in parallel, it requires the installation of the parallel software. If you're working on a different computer, a Mac or a Linux computer, you need to compile it for the other platforms. You need to have hardware that's up to doing the job, and you need the data in a compatible grid format. So this is motivated working with the CyberGIS Center to deploy TOWDEM as an app or software service running entirely at NCSA using effectively just a web browser to interact with. So this slide describes some of the functionality established at the CyberGIS Center for Advanced Digital and Spatial Studies, which is led by Xiaowen Wang. There they have a supercomputer named Roger that was acquired as part of a NSF major research instrumentation grant. Roger comes out from this acronym, but really it seems to be named in honor of Roger Tomlinson, who is one of the sort of leading founders of geographic information systems. So they came up with a clever acronym that corresponded to his name, and his memory lives on in this supercomputer. And there's a picture of some of its wiring. You can see some of the details of what this computer has. It's got up to about 6 petabytes of raw storage disk. It's got solid-state drives, advanced graphical processing units, and interactive visualization supported with a high-speed network. TAUDEM has been installed on it, and various other software required to support it. For data sharing, and in particular connecting with HydroShare, it's using iRods and web server. So this is where I'm going to just break away from the presentation and do a bit of a demo. So these are screenshots from the TAUDEM app in CyberGIS. And let me split away and go to HydroShare, and I'll show you how to launch that. So here I've got the HydroShare website, www.hydroshare.org, and I'm going to sign in to my demo account, and I'm going to go into the My Resources part of the site, and you'll see that there's a number of resources listed there that I could go through that have been put on before. But for the purposes of this demonstration, I'm going to create a new geographic raster and do the work with that. So I'm going to click Create New. I'm going to go to Geographic Raster, and I'm going to browse. And the file I'm going to select is this one called onion.tif. This is a digital elevation model from Onion Creek. And so I'm just going to name it Onion Creek, and I'm going to click Create Resource. So now this is about a 75-byte file. It takes about a minute and a half to upload over the wireless network that I'm sitting on here at Quasi. So yeah, we'll just have to be patient while we do that, and I can have a sip of my cup of coffee. Should point out that Onion Creek is a subset from the National Elevation data set that covers a watershed that's near Austin, Texas, that's been subject to quite a bit of flooding recently, and so has been part of the studies associated with the National Flood Interoperability Experiment that's been going on there. One of the things that you'll see about this data set once it finally loads is that it's in geographic coordinates, which means that its elevation values are spaced at 1/3 of an arc second, or roughly 10-meter spacing, but the spacing is different north, south, and east, west. So you see now it's actually uploaded. I can scroll down. I can see if I look at I can see there it's about 70. I said 75. It's only 73 megabytes. I can look at the coverage information. This is where it is, just south of Austin. I could go into resource-specific information, and it's in this projection. And I could, as I did last time, go and add information such as variable names and variable units to enhance the metadata, saying what this is. I'm not going to do that. Firstly, I'm just going to show some of the ways of visualizing this data, and I'm going to visualize it in the HydroShare GIS app. So this is an app that's running at apps.hydroshare.org, and it's it's a separate web server, but also part of HydroShare. So now that file is getting effectively moved from where it is in iRods into the folder that's serving the app server, and in a minute we'll get this display refreshed, and we'll see what this digital elevation model looks like. So there the tiles of it. There the tiles of it come in, and I can also add a base map to this, and you'll see just in the background there, Austin. If I sort of zoom out a little bit, you'll once it tiles in again, you'll see there that's where it is in the context of Austin. So that's one place for sort of visualizing data. But what I really wanted to show is actually delineating this watershed. So now I'm going to switch back to HydroShare, and instead of opening this digital elevation model with the visualization app, I'm going to open it with the Tarboton CyberGIS app. So this requires me to log in. So I've got an account on this system, and I'll show you guys how to get accounts if you want to try this back where you are. So it also, it's going to read and write files from my HydroShare account. So I need to authorize it to do that because it's a separate app running. I mean, I could have launched this to any website, and this is similar to when you download an app on your cell phone and you say, okay, I'm going to authorize it to be able to see my address book. Well, here I'm authorizing it to have reading and writing scope, and I'm allowing it to write because it's going to be able to pass my results back. So this is using some technology called OAuth that basically allows the exchange of information, but requires a user to authorize that. So now you'll see that I'm sitting at the CyberGIS gateway, and I'm logged in, and I'm seeing a list of Tarboton products. So the approach taken in designing this app has been that I just click on the product that I want. Perhaps I'm interested in topographic wetness index, and the system for these products knows the sequence of Tarboton functions that you have to run to obtain them, and they appear in this little flowchart here that's too hard to read even when you're not projecting it on a webinar. But you can hover over each little icon and see this is our input elevation grid, and that's passed through the pit remove function to produce a hydrologically correct elevation grid. Then it's put into the flow direction function, and it produces the flow direction grid as well as the slope grid. And then you run the contributing area function, and then it produces an area grid. And then the wetness index is the ratio of slope to contributing area, and it's the log of that, and that produces the wetness index. So if I select that product, I can just I can then submit this, and I'll get this result. I'm going to do more than this. I'm also going to get stream network and sub-watersheds. So here you can see that this flowchart has become a little bit more complicated, and I'm going to get a contributing stream raster because that's one of the inputs that stream network and sub-watersheds require. So these are the three things that that I want to get, and I'm going to click that I want parameters. I also need to specify a name. If you don't specify a name, it complains. So I'm going to say this is an onion demo, and when I click on parameters, it now presents to me a list of the parameters that some of these functions involved need. And you'll see as my mouse moves around the screen, different ones of them get highlighted and moves to where that function's parameters are. If I scan down the list, I'll see quite a few of the functions don't need any parameters. Here, there's a threshold required for defining streams. Because I'm working with a high-resolution data set, I'm going to go to a larger threshold. That's 500,000, roughly 10-meter grid cells. I'm also going to scroll down, and here it needs to say, what is the source for my definition of streams? And I'm going to say it's the contributing area stream raster defined with that threshold. Those are the only two parameters I have to supply. There are some optional things that I could input if I wanted, but I'm not going to bother with that now. I can then click Review, and the system is now showing me the set of parameters specified just for me to check. And then I can click Submit, and this now submits this as a job to run at CyberGIS. So I uploaded data into HydroShare, and now it's running at CyberGIS. There's this little hammer coming down which shows that it's in the queue waiting to go, and this is the job that I just created right now. You can see here a few others that I've run before that are still sitting there. This is going to take a few minutes to run, and if I switch back to the slides, you'll get a sense of what's going on. So let me see if I can make the slides smaller so that we can keep track on what's going with that hammer. But you'll see that basically it says that there's an analysis has been submitted. In a minute, it'll switch to where it says analysis running, then the results created, and then results ready. At that point, I'll be able to visualize them, and the information will get pushed back to HydroShare. So here you can see that now it's running. I can also, well, let me go. I've got a couple of slides here. This slide shows the product-oriented workflow idea that's being used, where you select or input a digital elevation model. You select the TALDEM products you want. You specify the parameters. You review the configuration that's automatically determined, and then you submit. And it shows you this little flow chart so that you can know what's going on. If you want to sign in and have an account for yourself, you can go to the system, and let me expand this out into presentation mode. There's actually two separate systems that are currently deployed. There's this one, GWDev 8, which is the development version that we're testing the interconnection with HydroShare, and it's at that website. Then there's also Sandbox, which supports TALDEM on the 10-meter national elevation data set, where you can subset the national elevation data set, but you can't provide your own data. Both of them are limited to 100 million grid cells while this development is going on. And if you go to one of these websites, you can click on this register button to request an account. It'll probably send you back an email to verify your email address, and then you'll be able to try this. This just shows a depiction of the national elevation data set in the Sandbox gateway system that you could use at CyberGIS. And this shows that there is a help wiki where you can go and read about all the functions. So let me go and actually show that to you. So you can see the job is still running here. The help wiki you can get to by just clicking on help, and you'll see that there is a bit of explanation of how to use the gateway. You can scroll down and see some of the other functionality that CyberGIS supports, things like a view shed, visualization tool, bioscope. I don't know very much about those, but here we find the TALDEM app, and you'll see the description there of the interface for it that you've seen. And then you can also scroll down and see documentation on each of the individual products. So if you're interested in learning what TALDEM can do and what you can get from this interface, you would go to say, okay, hydrologically conditioned grid, and there's a bit of an explanation there for what it does. You could also see, for example, we've specified that we wanted topographic wetness index, and of course that one doesn't have its documentation up to date. So I should pick one of the other ones, stream network and subwatershed. This explains the stream network that you can get out of TALDEM. That's going to be a linked stream network where there's link numbers, connectivity downstream and upstream, and so on. So there's help information that you can get there. While this job is running, I'm going to hope that it finishes soon, but you can never know how busy the supercomputer that's actually running on is, so it's taking its time. I can switch to where the analysis was done previously. So this is the previous analysis, and I'm going to say load, and you'll see this is actually showing a result of a previous run that I did, and it's listing all of the files that were part of that earlier analysis, including the original elevation file. Most of them are not displayed initially, but we can go and say click to show the stream network on the map. Now you get that to the map. There's this little thing here that allows you to control what overlays are displayed, so you can turn off the base elevation data set or turn it back on again, or I can display on the map the topographic wetness index. I can zoom way in if I want to see some of the information in greater detail. So let's see if we've got any luck here. So far not. So let me now switch back to HydroShare, and I'll show you a couple of the things that. Well, let me just leave that running and finish off with some of these slides here. So what I'm actually showing is a fairly small fairly small scale analysis that I was hoping was going to complete in the time of this talk. But what this work is really targeting is to try and do large scale analysis. And for doing that, we've been working on this concept of flood inundation mapping using the height above nearest drainage. And this is part of the Quasi and the National Water Center's Innovation Program Summer Institute that's happening at the University of Alabama right now, where they're working on flood inundation modeling based on forecast flows from the National Water Model. And the idea that's related to the terrain analysis that we've been doing is that you can look at the catchments that drain to each reach of the National Hydrography data set, stream reaches, and you can take the digital elevation model, and you can use one of the TALDEM functions to calculate the height above the nearest drainage. You can think of that as perhaps starting at each grid cell, moving down along the flow directions until you hit the stream. then the elevation you've dropped gives the height above the nearest stream. So you can think of that as a relative elevation. And then if you know that the flow in that stream is going to get to that depth, you can easily map whether the grid cells that drain to that stream have a height above the nearest drainage that's less than or greater than that value, and indicate whether there's flooding. So we've been producing this product to support the flood modeling. It came about naturally because TAUDEM has a function to calculate distance down and distance up from any point of interest to the stream or to the ridge. And we try to frame that in a general way and said, okay, well, distance could be measured vertically or horizontally or along the slope, and in this case, to support height above the nearest drainage, it's been calculated vertically. So here's the workflow that was worked out working with the CyberGIS team to take the 10-meter national elevation data set for the whole country, blend it with high-resolution topography to remove obstacles, then run through TAUDEM procedures, pit removal, flow direction calculations, then calculating the vertical distance, well, the D8 flow direction, D8 flow accumulation, defining the streams, and then calculating the vertical distance to the streams. The streams were extracted to match the national hydrography data set flow lines as best possible. So this shows some of the results of that. We have catchments and flow lines shown on the top left, the digital elevation model shown on the bottom right, and a height above nearest drainage layer for the whole country. And that was that's a 667 gigabyte data set that's input, the national elevation data set, 180 billion cells. There's 2.67 million flow lines. The high-resolution hydrography data set that was used to remove obstacles is 30 million vectors. And when we run that procedure I just showed, you get an output of 4.9 terabytes. And the result is this height above the nearest drainage that's 363 gigabytes. And the Roger supercomputer was able to process all of the nation's 336 HUC-6 units in one day. So that's quite an impressive piece of supercomputing that can be done using this, using some of this machinery. Let me see if we've got any progress on our work yet. Okay, so now we can see that my demo job has now finished. So I could click on that. I can load, and similar to the other one I was showing you, I've got things like the stream network that I can show on the map. I might let's show something slightly different. Let me show the specific catchment area on the map, and let me zoom in so you can get a sense of the topography. But one of the things that's a little bit limiting right now with the CyberGIS gateway is you don't have a lot of flexibility in what you can do in terms of things with color schemes and managing where the data is. So part of what one of the advantages of connecting with HydroShare is that all of those results, each of these individual files, has now been pushed back to HydroShare. So if I switch back to HydroShare and refresh the My Resources page, you'll see that there's a bunch of new files that have been added. Each of them is prefixed by Onion Demo. That was the analysis name that I gave. And so this was the authorization I gave to that app to write files back into into my account, and you'll see that there's quite a lot of them. And I could do things like open the Onion Demo Net shapefile, and I could open it with the HydroShare GIS if I wanted to. I can also do things like fill out the, well, you'll notice the abstract already is filled out for me. It tells me some of the details of the job that ran, I could fill out the keywords, and I could share it with one of my collaborators, or I could publish it with a digital object identifier in support of one of my papers if I wanted to. I could also add it to the map that I had previously. So rather than just opening this with the HydroShare GIS, which would open a new instance, I'm going to switch back to this tab that had this map here, and I'm going to add a HydroShare resource, and I'm going to do a search on Onion, and of course it doesn't discover it immediately, and that's because this app was actually open before this app was open, and it got its list of resources before I created those other resources, so I actually can't do this work this way. So let me close that, and I'm going to just open this HydroShare GIS app and show the loading of some of the layers. So there I've got the stream network that I just delineated, and I can add other things. So now it's loading the resource list, so it'll actually have the complete set of new resources that I just created. And there's quite a lot that are available to me. I'm just going to do the filter work on Onion Demo, and I'm going to load the, let me load the topographic wetness index, so I'll add that. The color scheme doesn't look all that impressive, but I can do things like this. This app allows me to rearrange things on the screen so I can order them. I can also go into the color schemes and modify the color scheme. So rather than having 3 colors in the gradient, I'm going to have 5. I'm going to put the top value of 30.4 up here, and I'm going to say put a bound at 5 and 10, and I'm going to pick different colors, maybe make that one yellow, then maybe that one a sort of a light green, and maybe make that a light blue, and maybe make this one a dark blue, and then I can apply this. So you get a sense of the wetness index, and I can zoom in a little bit, and it'll show me the results in higher resolution. So and I could sort of pan around and let it fill in the detail for me, and there you see the wetness index that you might be interested in for this area. I can now save this as an Onion Creek map, and this will save it as a resource in HydroShare. So if I close that and I close this map and I go back to my resources, there you can see I have this Onion Creek map resource, which I could reopen with the GIS, or I could share it here with one of my my colleagues and show it to them. So there's a sort of collaboration idea based on this data that we've generated using CyberGIS. So let me wrap this up so there's a bit of time for some questions. So you will have seen that the things that we could do at CyberGIS today are really limited to the scripts that are already prepared, starting from a digital elevation model and getting to one of the predefined products using the workflow that's already there. Often research wants to deviate from something that somebody else has done before, so there's a sort of need for customizing the work. So we're working on using what are referred to as Jupyter notebooks. A Jupyter notebook looks like a regular word processing document, but interspersed with it, it's got cells that one can then write Python code in those cells and execute the Python code. And that Python code might call functions to run on CyberGIS and do, say, some of the TOWDEM functions and then push some of the results back into HydroShare to provide a sort of gateway into more custom computation in HydroShare. And that's we're setting up to work with TOWDEM as well as the Rhesus model, which people like Christina Teig and Larry Band work on, the Land Lab programs that Erkan Estanbuloglu and his group works on. So that's additional functionality that's been added. Also at CyberGIS, they hold the National Elevation Dataset and the National Height above Nearest Drainage layer. So we're working on getting those products to be served so that the community can just use the predefined products and work with them together with a national water model output. So the national water model is being developed by the National Water Center. It's being run across the country. It's using Wharf Hydro and some channel routing, and there's a lot of research that needs to get done to improve that, and we're hoping that the serving of this data can catalyze some of that research. So a bit of a summary of what I've shown is that the application programmers interfaces that HydroShare has enables launching of apps hosted on any web server. So that makes it extensible. The OAuth and HydroShare access control model allows these other systems to access the content of resources. And the TOWDEM app was an example of accessing a resource that I created and software as a service for hydrologic research. All of what I did, apart from uploading the file initially, was done in the browser. I didn't have to install any software. I didn't have to worry about whether my PC had the memory to do what I needed to do, and then I could immediately share my results. There's also the capability to document the workflows. You will have seen that the resources that came back had descriptions of how they were produced. And I was using a high-performance computer. So this extensibility offers the opportunity to link with other data and modeling systems as we start using it more. So this wouldn't have happened without the hard work of a lot of people, so I really need to thank them, and I'd be happy to take questions if there's time.
So Dave, there's one question in the chat box from Bill Saunders. Re-delineation, are users able to specify an outlet point?
Right now that's not possible. That's possible in TOWDEM, but the CyberGIS functionality for specifying that is still in progress, but we're hoping that'll be there very soon. You can actually use it with the version that operates on the National Elevation Dataset, but the version that's receiving input from HydroShare doesn't have that working yet.
Okay, if it's the only question I see right now in the chat box. If anybody else has a question, please type something in the chat box. And otherwise, I guess you should tap dance, Dave, for a little bit.
That'll be
Or
fun.
hum.
So maybe can I see the questions in the chat box?
Can.
I
But
guess
I can
not if
read them
I'm
to you.
sharing my screen.
Yeah, there's a way, but don't worry about it. I have it. I can.
Steve Burgess is typing. Okay.
Yes. Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Steve. So I guess we're hoping people will check these tools out. A big issue for us is convincing the potential funders, like the National Science Foundation, that they should continue to support us to support these tools. So it really is a key thing that you try them and let us know what you think, and let them know if it's if it's useful to you, because we need to demonstrate that to be able to sustain these activities. If there are no more questions, then I guess we will wish you a happy afternoon and talk to you next time. When is the next? Is there another one, or is this it?
There is another seminar, so let me just switch back to the slide at the beginning.
Wait, two more, yeah.
There's one on next week that Venkatesh Mawadi will talk about SWOT. So there's capability to basically save SWOT models in HydroShare, share them with users, and then go and execute them on the Purdue access, well, through the Purdue University access to the Exceed supercomputing system. And then we'll be at the quasi-colloquium where there's these two workshops. And then after the colloquium on the 1st of August, Dan Ames will give a seminar on more about the apps. You might have noticed if you are working in HydroShare, there's this little link here that says apps. And so far we've only really touched on this HydroShare GIS one, and maybe the HydroShare raster and feature viewers. But there's things like using the EPA water services, the National Water Model Data Explorer, and he's going to talk about the whole approach to extensibility through apps. Will be the last webinar.
Right, and just to answer to John Nicholson's question, yes, this presentation is recorded, and presumably it's going to be available at that URL. Is that correct? Or Liz, you can jump in and tell us where the recordings will be.
Yep, at that URL. It will be posted on there either tonight or tomorrow.
Okay, very good. So that's the answer to that question. So I guess if there's nothing else, thank you for attending, and we'll see you July 18th, and hope to see you at the quasi-colloquium at the end of the month. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Thank you.